and how that person or myself expresses anger. And I think a few people have mentioned it already. It develops in youth, and I think you're taught along the way.
Got angry was during my first marriage that did not work out, and the reason was for me not being able to express myself clearly.
Throughout my life at random times that I've gotten jealous of seeing someone that I value highly value someone else and not show me any attention. I think it's this like attention seeking side of me.
But one of the things I've noticed is that there are lots of aspects of myself in my workplace and my interactions with others where I tend to unconsciously step on other people's toes.
So, just want to welcome you all to the Creation Station and Soul Sauce and yes, let's have hippie snaps for everybody for showing up tonight. Even though you don't know what the fuck you're about to get into, you're here for it anyways. Spiritual expansion is the overall sort of umbrella philosophy of what we're doing, and within spiritual expansion, it has a few different categories. So spiritual expansion is now a new YouTube channel where I'm producing content that is the podcast style, like what you're seeing here tonight, as well as art project builds, yoga and acro yoga, and updates of art projects at Big Love Yoga Barn, and the energetic transformation that the new Big Love Yoga Barn is about to undergo. So that's the Spiritual Expansion YouTube channel. Be working on pieces of that all the time. And we'd love to have these kinds of in-person spiritual gatherings, because look around at everybody. Make a little eye contact with everybody. Yeah. And hold your hands over your heart. Make the heart shape over your heart. And then go boom, 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 boom. Yeah, checking for life. You're still there, bro. I love how anal that is. So we are here for spiritual expansion. Soul Sauce tonight. Topic is anger. Show of middle finger. Who's ever been angry? Who's ever been affected by anger? Yeah. Some people are more fingers. Yeah, all of them. All right, yeah, hold them all up. Yeah, so this is a very big human trait that we're all dealing with, and we're about to get deep into the positives and negatives of it. Maybe you think that there's no positive that is of anger, and I was thinking about a lot of that, because everything in the universe is a yin and yang, a positive and negative perspective, depending on the intention, the direction, the polarity, so all that. Let's go around the room and do a little introduction. Let's start this way, and let's hear your name, and if you were a bug, what bug would you be?
Oh my gosh. All right. Hey everybody, I'm Jenna. So super excited to be here. Thanks for having this. If I were a bug.
And why?
I'd probably be a ladybug. I feel like that's cliche.
You know what? I love the ladybug.
I really do love ladybugs.
They're so cute. They don't look like bugs.
Like,
they're more
bugs that I'm like,
they're like the friendly bug.
I know, I'm like, stay crawling on me forever.
Yeah, like
And,
people think they're good luck.
Yeah.
Even though they're
how
lunatics.
I like their little black spots on the red. I think they're so pretty, and they manifest and bring a lot of good fortune. So.
All right.
We'll go with that.
Awesome, thank you. And you're welcome to share anything deeper than just what bug as well, if you need to, as we go around.
There's that invitation as well too. Let's go across the front here.
I'm Chris, And if I had to be a bug, I would be a butterfly is a bug, right?
Mm-hmm.
So butterfly, I'd be a yellow and black butterfly. Even though the last couple weeks I've been dreaming about monarch butterflies. It's
Mhm.
like, what is behind that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Regardless, I have spirit guides, and they come to me in a yellow and black butterfly.
I
Interesting.
love that. I love the specificity of that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's a lot of layers because you're like conflicted between the yellow and black butterfly, but then you're getting all these monarchs in your life now. So, what's going on?
I'm Monty. I haven't given it too much thought, but I like the idea of a grasshopper. I think those are really cool, and they look beautiful and noble.
Yeah.
That would be my bug. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like
Okay.
grasshoppers.
I like how in the Bug's Life they had them like riding. It's
That's a
like
great
they were
movie.
riding choppers. It was awesome.
Yeah, and they can jump and fly. They're a little extra cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name's Connor. I think I'd be a bumblebee of some sort, but I wouldn't want to just be the typical one. I think it's really important to help cross-pollinate different species, and I think it's such an important part of life. And speaking of
You'd be a
anger-
trans-species butterfly or bumblebee.
Yeah, exactly. I think speaking of anger, there's definitely an element of like the stinger that would be important to hold on to. So,
Nice. I like that perspective. Yeah, you're. Yeah, go ahead. Go.
I would be probably a caterpillar that's metamorphosizing into a butterfly.
All
But
right.
I'm still in like the cocoon,
It's the
figuring
chrysalis.
myself out, pushing myself around, trying to
Ooh.
get those wings out.
Oh, that's so specific. Why?
Yeah, why? Why? That's a very specific moment to pick, and not a like happy moment. You wouldn't think like that, So why that?
I just remember learning that if you like break the cocoon while like even if you try to help the caterpillar to come into a butterfly, it actually prevents its wings from growing as much. So you have to like just let it do its own thing
Yeah.
so it can fully fly. So I feel like that's been a theme recently. I would just
Rocking the easy bake oven.
Are you also in a transformative state of your life right now?
yes, figuring out what colors are gonna come out and
Mm-hmm.
how large the wings are gonna be. No idea.
That's why I love it.
And what's your name?
Jillica, sorry.
Jillica.
I forgot
It's
about
all right.
Jillica.
I was-
Just like a caterpillar.
Jillica.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
I am Chris. I was going to say a honeybee, not to take your idea of it, because they perpetuate the cycle of life, but they also produce honey.
Yeah.
So they like give back. They're part of this constant giving back of the cycle of life.
Yeah.
Good answer, guys.
Yeah, they're producers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Thanks, brother, for being here. All right. Okay, there we go.
My name is Marjorie, and I would pick, I think it's called the Jerusalem cricket.
Oh.
This one. Yeah, I just thought about it. I was struggling to finding one, but I think it's because sometimes it gets misunderstood as it is like it gives the impression to be like a dangerous or poisonous bug, and it's not. It's actually very good for the soil. And people I've heard, it's something new in the last year I was learning about it. It's very good for the soil.
Oh, good. Yeah, good for the earth. All right, buddy.
My name is Sharon, and it was the butterfly. The only memory that the first thought that came into mind was my Akshak reading, which was full with butterflies.
All right. All right, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
No, we're gonna need more. I'm sorry.
Give us another 3 more paragraphs. Come on.
My name's Adrian, and when I think about all the possible things we could choose, I'm really drawn to
fireflies, like a little lightning bug.
Oh,
Bioluminescence.
that's gonna be that was gonna be mine for the exact same reason.
Oh, bioluminescence. So yeah, I just
Connecting.
love it. Exactly.
Good.
I love also there's this one place that you can go, and I think it's Florence, South Carolina, and see them synchronized. Those bioluminescence all going at the same time, which you guys know,
Yeah.
shows that there's such connected thought. It's almost like when we see sparrows or birds, creating three-dimensional. I think they're doing that with these giant marsh areas for these hand synchrony.
Yeah, amazing.
Let's all do that.
All right, we'll plan a spiritual expansion field trip.
Yes, to see these
Egypt.
Totally. Thank you for that, Adrian. How about you, brother?
My name is Satek, and it would have to be between a praying mantis or a beetle. And the praying mantis, because they're just so like badass and like kung fu, and the beetle because of the iridescence. Like I've always loved the iridescence.
Yeah, I love iridescence too. All right. Well, I am Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to pick the lightning bug because of the bioluminescence, and I just love the idea of like my ass like lighting up. And so I'll just go with that still. Yeah, I'll just tag on to Adrian's and just ditto that.
For a different reason.
So all good. Thank you all again for being here. Let's go ahead and get the understanding of what soul sauce is with Satek. Welcome one and all to another soul sauce meeting. Jason and I started this at the barn in the middle of the pandemic because we needed to connect, we needed to share, and the idea was to sit together in a circle with everyone wearing a blindfold, and we just went around the circle sharing deep and vulnerable feelings and stories, and some people laughed, some people cried. More meaning was touched and tasted and discovered than anybody expected, and here we are still doing it a couple of years later. And this is the evolutionary version of it. We always tried to figure out how to do it as a podcast, but we couldn't figure out how to mic an entire circle well where everybody could be heard. And so what we've done here with this format is that the circle revolves around the microphones, okay? And so the invitation is for everyone to take their turn in what we call the share chair. It's the shared chair with the Care Bear stare. Made for this chair, so we can put it over there.
The soul seat is another one we use sometimes. And all you're gonna do is put on one of these little pretty colored blindfolds, and you're just gonna share with us anything that feels real, anything that feels valuable right now. We always have a theme, we always have a topic, but it's really just a loose, direction for the conversation to flow. Don't feel intimidated by coming up. We'll cue you. We'll ask you questions. We'll guide you gently. You're in safe hands, and everyone, please know that this is a safe space. This started as a spiritual support group, so this is a place where we're not listening to critique y'all. We're not listening to call out or cancel or judge. We're listening to just receive people's truth. And if we can do that for each other, our truths will be received as well. And I promise you that if you can just open yourself to receive people's truths, more good will ever come from anybody arguing about any particular thing anyone needs to say, right? Like, this is a space where you can say whatever you need to say. And don't worry about the recordings. If you share stuff you don't want shared later, let us know. We gotta deal with all this media, and it's a long time before it's gonna see the light of day anyway. Just let us know and we won't include it in anything, okay? Don't let this stop you from sharing whatever you need to share. We do invite everyone to listen in a different way than you might normally. We call it deep
listening. And what this means is like reading between the lines, listening to the things people don't say, listening to their body language, listening to their breathing patterns, their sighs, their pauses. Because what happens is when we listen deeply, we hear far more of what is being shared than we hear in just the words. And we invite you to listen deeply. Whenever whoever's speaking is done, we will have space to ask some questions. We'll usually ask some questions first, and then we'll give the audience a chance to ask some questions as well. Once everybody has asked their questions, if you have a thought to add, do that after we've asked questions. We don't want to like just add thoughts and go off in other directions. We want to give everybody a chance to address whatever was shared first. And just know that this is a safe space, and we love each of you for being willing to come, and know that this isn't Fight Club and you don't have to share. Like nobody's gonna make you share, but the invitation is to maybe step out of your comfort zone and trust that you're in a safe place, and trust that nobody knows what they're gonna say until they say it. Nobody knows. We're all making this shit up as we go along. And so if you give yourself space to make some shit up and just speak from your heart, you might you might discover something you haven't really tasted before. That's the invitation. As far as our theme goes, our theme was brought up by one of our members, and I love it when members offer themes. Because it means somebody needs to share some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it means somebody needs to talk about something. And it's always a gentle, recommendation. If you have something else you need to share, don't feel like you can't get up here and share that. If you don't have anything to talk about this, it's okay. We still want to hear your heart. But tonight's theme is anger. Anger. And this is going to be a different experience of anger that you've ever felt before, because anger is usually treated as a bad guy. Anger is usually treated as the boogeyman. Anger is usually treated as the devil or a demon. And tonight you're going to see that that's not what anger always is. There's a lot of types of anger, y'all. There's righteous anger, there's holy anger, there's family anger, there's defend your people anger. There's all kinds of anger. And I would really, really love it if y'all can dig deep and find some very real and very visceral experiences to share with us tonight. And I don't want you to pull any punches, because that's not why we're here. We're here for the raw and the real. We can handle it. Trust me, we're all adults here. And there's no fucking AI robot, like censoring us. Like, we can all be real here. And if you need to curse, let yourself curse. We can bleep shit later. We can bleep shit later. And all I need to share about anger is that it was one of the first places that I ever felt power in my life. And my very first archetype, my very first hero was the Hulk. And I identified with this character in a way that if I ever got in any issue, in any situation, in any problem, I would Hulk out. And y'all, I'm like, my eyes in my mind, my eyes are literally turning green and shit, and my clothes are popping, and no one has ever been able to stop me when I Hulk out. When I Hulk out. And I used this archetype to protect myself. I used this archetype to accomplish things, to win at sports, to win at lots of competitive things. And I used this archetype in ways that weren't always helpful. And I think each one of you knows what I mean by that.
Expand.
I burned some bridges with anger. Anger is like fire. It's like fire. It is, it's transmutation. It's alchemy.
and it burns things up. And if you understand it, if you respect it, if you treat it with honor, you can cook a fabulous meal with it. You can protect your moat with it. You can raise a field. You can do all kinds of things with it. But if you don't honor it, you can burn your own damn house down. You can burn your own house down. And I burned enough houses down to know that I don't desire to get anything in my life through anger anymore. I don't desire to utilize that archetype anymore, not because I think there's anything wrong with it, but because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good inside. It doesn't make me happy to cultivate anger. And you have to cultivate it, y'all. You have to cultivate it. It doesn't happen on its own. You have to cultivate it. You have to give it energy. You have to feed it like a fire. If you don't feed a fire, it burns out. You have to feed anger, y'all. And I don't like the cost. I feel it. I feel it. And it still happens sometimes. It still pops up occasionally. Very rarely, unless I'm dating someone. Like it doesn't happen very, very often unless things get romantic. But any case, whenever it does arise, I see through it. I don't like the feeling of it, and I don't want to get anything ever again through anger. I don't want to get anything ever again through intimidation. I don't want to get anything ever again through fear, through violence, through condescension, through any of those things. I did that enough in my life, and I know what it feels like, and I'm not here to play that game anymore. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
How, in a romantic sense, like were there situations that sparked that fire?
Great question. Great question. You know what triggers are? They're buttons. We've all got them. We've all got them. And my anger has specific buttons. And when I was young, there were a lot of them. And there's a lot of reasons for them. It was a weird-ass childhood, weird-ass circumstances. And the older I got, the fewer buttons I had, because I realized it doesn't feel good. And romantic partners still have access to those buttons because a lot of those wounds go all the way back to the beginning. They go back to my first companions, my first girlfriends. They go back to my mother. They go back to my father, you know, and one of the only ones that's still there that's really obvious to me is someone telling me what my truth is, someone telling me how I feel or telling me what I meant when I said something. That's a trigger for me, and it was always a trigger for my mother. Like anybody that questioned her truth, she would lose it. She would literally lose. She was bipolar, and she would lose her fucking mind. It didn't matter where, didn't matter holidays, didn't matter public restaurant, didn't matter. She would lose her shit if anybody questioned her truth. I don't flip out like that. But I've always taken questioning my personal truth as an affront, because I grew up in a lot of shitty places. I grew up in a lot of shitty places, and your truth is all you really have. And if you don't defend it, other people tell you what truth is in all kinds of ways, you know? So I learned to defend my truth from a very early age, and I can see the wound in that now. You know, and I've been working on letting go of that trigger for a long time, and I do better now than I ever have before in my life. I'm proud to say. Thank you for that question.
That's great.
Anybody else?
Go ahead, Monty.
That's
Connor.
yeah.
Sorry, a lot of names.
When you describe these past experiences with anger, how many of them were you consciously aware of being driven from anger, or were there ever times where you didn't even notice until after the damage was done that, wow, like What have I done?
Great question. Great question. I think anger is almost never conscious. You know, anger is almost always this gut response. It's like this threatened response, like fight or flight. Um, and and a large part of it is that I grew up as a mixed child, you know, mixed kid in a Southern white Baptist family, and in a black family, there's a much different style of communication than there is in a white family. There's a much different style of volume. There's a much different style of truth that's shared. In a black family, you don't get hurt if you're not loud. There's too much shit going on. You don't get hurt if you're not loud. In a black family, if you don't say how you actually feel, nobody fucking cares, you know? In a white family, like, there's decibel levels and you have to be respectful. And in a white family, very often, you're not encouraged to talk about how you actually feel. And I had to navigate these two different, completely different cultural rule sets without anybody explaining to me what any of it fucking meant, you know? and so it took me a long time to understand that white people think I'm angry when I'm loud. And then, like, it doesn't mean that I'm angry when I'm loud. I had to figure that out, you know? And I had to figure out that I could communicate with black people without yelling. It's possible to just, like, speak at a normal level. Like, you don't have to scream. Like, and so all of my life I've been learning to walk these two different roles that are so strangely, like, different. And I did it the best I could, as all of us mulattoes do. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We got other people. I would, like, totally love to do this more. We got other people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please come and share. We will honor you. We will be gentle. All right. Thank you. All right. Do you want to go or wait till later?
I'd like to get the crowd here involved. Who would like to step up to the share chair?
We take volunteers first. If nobody volunteers, we'll just literally go around the ring. Any volunteers first?
Chris?
I requested. I just talked about it last week, and it kind of hit a bone with everyone.
Let me ask everybody this. Who's nervous about going?
Yeah, half the group was honest.
And of those that are nervous of going, do you know that facing your nervous instinct right now will help to move you beyond it? Anybody who feels anxious can examine their anxiousness and see that this kind of experience can help to evolve you, to ascend you. And if you want ascension,
just come up and get angry for being put on the spot.
I'll do it.
I don't appreciate
I'll
this.
get up here. I'll get up here because I brought it up last week, and this is how this happened.
Give me something to break!
I get that you didn't realize this would be the result, but that's how co-creation works.
I've been playing the Limp Bizkit song for the ad.
You never know what's going to happen with co-creation.
Is this really happening?
Your hat is on, bro. You
really happening.
Do this. I can do
You
this.
can do his mask and a hat.
I can do this. Just like I can do this, and I can do some things. All right, is this recording?
Yep, we're
Okay.
ready. We're ready. All right.
Do I have to do this?
You have to do this.
No.
Tell us your name, and then tell us anything that feels relevant to share off the top, just about anger, and then we'll go from there. Your name and anything that feels relevant about
All
anger.
right. So here we go.
I'm Chris. I remember the first time I really got angry. I was 4 years old. My parents had just divorced, and I was really upset. So upset that, according to my mom, I cried for weeks and weeks. And my brothers, I was 4, so one was 5 and one was, 2, and then
too. I just remember, very upset of why is it like this? Why is this happening? Um, and just getting really angry. I don't necessarily remember my tantrums, but I guess I had tantrums, and I vaguely remember those tantrums. And tantrums are something that it's just in me. It's in a lot of us. It's relative, right? A tantrum could be throwing just a piece of paper across the room, and other could be, throwing, a vase. I mean, it's really what's your tantrum level. And there's different levels of anger. Unfortunately, it's in us. It's like, it's like our skin, it's like our breath. It's just part of us. Probably the last 5 years, I would say I'm really, really focused on my anger. Had to, because it suits no one that I'm around any good purpose. So it is my first concern for the last, I don't know, 5, 8 years, probably more 5, just to say, how do I minimize this? I'm gonna get angry, but how do I minimize this? And, I wouldn't necessarily say just because I'm male and, I'm not a female that I'm more aggressive. It's probably just anger and how that person or myself expresses anger. And I think a few people have mentioned it already. It develops in youth. And I think you're taught along the way. My mother, my parents, my grandparents did the best they could. But it's something, and this is probably just from living with it for decades, that we really have to try to get a hold of it in ourselves, because ultimately, if we have kids or the people we're around, it's a negative contagion, that will just propagate. And that's the last thing I want to do is push this on to the next generation of my blood. That's the last thing what I would want to do. And unfortunately, when my daughters were 12 and 11, they didn't even know I had an anger issue until that long. But if you think about it, 12 and 11 is a long stretch to have a full out expression of anger. When it takes two to really go there, and I'm pretty calm. The storm can really be bubbling up, and I can handle it, but everybody has their break point. And unfortunately, they saw a fit of anger, and I mean, it's like I think about it probably many times in the year, and they're 24 and 23 now. So, it really will eat at you, and you really have to say to myself, it's just serves no good purpose. And how do I control that it doesn't get to that level? And it's been a real struggle. And as Jillica said, I want to be alone. I want to be left alone, and I want to just kind of be isolated so I can deal with my emotions. And I feel that way. If you're in a feud and expressing anger because of someone else that you're around, it's probably best to get away from that person. I mean, simply put, it serves no purpose to stick around and work through it when you're angry, right? It's irrational. Anger can be very irrational, and constant anger at the same issue can turn into hate and dislike. I mean, you really don't like it. But imagine for a moment, and really imagine this for a moment, if anger did not exist in our world. In our world, if anger did not exist, how much better of a place we would live in. And it starts at a very young age. And if I've lived a full life, and if you know, a 4-year-old now, if I could tell that 4-year-old, this is, you know, at times it's really going to hurt your life. It's going to hurt everything around you. I would listen and I would tell that person, but that was a long time ago. But yet here I am still coping and working through anger. And I'll tell you, the last 5 years, and especially the last 3, I've really made phenomenal advances in controlling this. And it's just, thank you.
Aho, thank you for the depth of that, brother. And I know exactly what you mean, because I caught my son, maybe 1.5, was arguing with his mom, and I didn't even realize I was angry. I didn't realize I was yelling. And I looked down on the bed, and he was looking at me like he was fucking terrified. He just had this horror in his eyes, and it broke my heart. And I was like, I cannot do this around him. I cannot seed his mind or his soul with this. So I feel that, brother, and I appreciate it. The first question I have for you is, I really love this idea of anger as throwing a fit. I really love that, and I want to know, like, your scale of fit throwing. Like, how does it begin, and like how high does it go? Like, what's the craziest fit you've ever thrown? Can you give us a feeling of your fit matrix?
Well, you know, I call it adult tantrums, right? Right, because we're adults here. And I think I phrased that last weekend, you know?
Yeah.
Adult tantrums. I'm subject to adult tantrums. I've said it in front of the group, and I'm like, okay, here I am again. Another group. Yes, I throw adult tantrums because I don't know how to just breathe. I'm going to try that again.
Nice.
Breathe through it and try to get a second wind. And I really have tried, you know, and it's worked, where I've tried multiple things, and I'll answer your question in a second. I'll breathe through an anger issue just to try to diffuse it. And, you know, I'm pretty calm up into like whatever that threshold is, right? Everybody has a threshold.
Yep.
But, you know, I would say, you know, things have been broken, and I regret in my worst tantrums. I mean, I'm not a physical person. I'll break something. You know, it's just how I react, and I do feel better. But unfortunately, it's not right. And I have so not broken anything in a long time, in years. And I can't tell you how that is. I can't tell you how hard that was to do, because I'd been doing it since I was 4. That's a long time. And I'm 55. So, you know, you have to say to yourself, that's a long stretch of doing adult tantrums, and it's not just throwing the piece of paper. You know, if something gets broken, and even if it's just a glass, you know, it's too much. You know, it's too much. You know, but how do you diffuse anger? And, you know, I used to have rage, but thankfully, just the progress that I've made doesn't let me get there. I don't go in a rage. I've somehow, the last 5 years, the last 3 years, have moved from rage. And that's huge. From rage to just anger. Keep it at the anger level and move away from the situation. But, you know, it can escalate quickly depending on who you're with or who you're around and who's pushing your buttons. You know, I've been most of my life in a leadership role that I can't act like that. I can't do that. It's like being a priest. You can't, you know, do that. You can't, right? You can't, in the public's eye, you always have to be, if you're...
Responsibility.
Yeah, and just the persona, the public view of you, you can't just do that. And so you carry more. Yeah. And you internalize it, and it's more weight, and you carry more weight. But thankfully yoga has helped me. Thank you, Jason, for, you know, bringing me into the yoga world. It's helped me. It's, you know, I've always been a fitness guy and very, you know, working out, and it's a de-stressor, and, you know, maybe to a certain point, meditation. Always had my little routine of, you know, stretching and meditating, always, all my life. But this, I think what I'm seeking out, especially this last year, is peace and peace and harmony, and because I've been needing it, and I just, this is why I'm here.
Is breaking shit the beginning of the fit, or is that the top?
Oh, that's
In
the top.
the spectrum, is that the beginning
That
of
is the
fit?
top. That
That's
is
the
the
top.
That
Okay,
is the top.
awesome.
Oh,
Thank you
that's
so much.
Yeah.
And the second question, and then we'll go around. The second question is, I feel a very respectable judgment in you towards anger. But what I want to know is, what do you think would happen if you had those feelings and you didn't let them out?
It would probably break me.
Thank you.
It would.
Thank you.
Mentally, and
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's why it comes out, bro.
Yeah.
That's why it comes out. And I grew up in Southern fucking Baptist repression with nobody expressing any fucking thing, and I could feel them all dying inside. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. You're gonna know how I feel. So I get that you don't want anger to be in the world, but it's way better than giving yourself cancer. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right, you got one.
Chris, I felt how when you were telling the story of the anger that you had when your daughters were 11 and 12, that had, even up till this point in your life, a massive effect on you and on them. And you're still carrying it around with you. Can you share with us what that was, with the intention of releasing some of its grip on you now?
So, to elaborate more on what had happened.
Correct.
I, being in a relationship, in a family environment, it's a give and take, and in some relationships you take, and sometimes a month will go by, but you give. It's a tug of war, and it's not always a tug of war, and it's not always a battle. It's pleasant, many days. It just so happened that particular time, and without being really specific, there was constant pushing of the buttons with this particular object. It was this object. It was a table, and every year I'd have to bring it upstairs, which was a heavy table, and I'd store it because that was just the way it had to be. And then I had to bring it down because it served a purpose. It was a table. It was good for coffee, for your feet, so on. So every year, it was like a bunch of years, 5 years in a row, and I'm like, okay, what is the story with this table? And maybe it's just a metaphor. Maybe there's a lot of underlying reasons that it's not the table.
It ain't the table.
So I just...
The table's a symptom.
Yes, and the table's gone. So the table's finally gone. I don't have to carry it upstairs anymore. But I broke it because it was the constant, and it was when we bought it together, it was a nice table, and it just so happens that, how did it not get so appealing? No, I mean, it's a great table. So it's more complex than just, you're right, the table was just a symbol and of a point, a trigger point. But it more so was to see my daughters, and my one daughter, the 12-year-old, said, "Dad, you have anger issues from the catwalk." and I just felt like, and I said, I know I do, but it was 12 years, and I wish they had never seen this, the dark side of me, right? Because I'm their role model, I'm their father. And I just would have never wanted that to happen, ever go to that day. And then it seemed like once that day came, it was just easier to do something again. And I'm not saying it was, something that drastic or that severe, but
easier to do something? What do you mean?
Like to break, like a lamp or something. It was,
once you broke the table.
Yep.
It opened the gate.
You know,
to the tantrums.
Yep, the adult tantrums.
Oh, you're saying that, okay, you went all those years without your daughter
Yep.
seeing this tantrum,
Right.
and then that happened, and then you were able to have more tantrums more regularly after that?
Yeah, like
Oh.
once a year. And you know,
Oh.
being in a relationship and being in a family environment, if any of you have or have kids, and I know there's a couple here, it's very difficult. It's not cut and dry, and that's the least of it. You know, I mean, you don't ever, you know, you never want a relationship or any physical person to get hurt, and it didn't. But it was a matter of, it was my release when I was 4. It was my release when it was 10. It was my release when I was 15, and so on. But the last 5 years, it's been good.
Love that. Love that.
Thank
I really want to take a second and honor something that everybody that has anger issues has to deal with, and that's, you can feel that it colors people's perception of you.
Yeah.
You can feel that it changes people's perception of you, and once it changes, you can't change it back. You can't change them being afraid of you, them feeling afraid of you. And for me growing up, you had to be able to make people afraid of you, otherwise you weren't safe. That's a skill you needed to have for survival. But later in life, in polite company, it's not quite so helpful. And so I want to honor that. That's what you were dealing with, is you knew that it would change their perception of you, and once they had that perception, you had no reason to hide it anymore. You had no reason.
It wasn't chronic, but it was more so, it happened the first time, and I tried hard. And I'm someone, when I try at something, it happens. Like, it will happen, and it's just like, I never wanted that to happen. But sometimes you don't control you're not the only player in your universe.
Yep.
And that's the bottom line. But thankfully I'm where I am today, and I'm so much beyond it now, because I made a full intention to overcome it. Because you could be 70 or 80 or, still having adult tantrums. Still, and I don't want that. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for anyone around me.
Yep. Amen. Amen. You guys got any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sharam, I think your hand went up first. Go ahead.
Okay, I just have one. Have you forgiven yourself for that incident?
Good question.
With my daughters?
Yes.
No.
Do you know why?
It's deep, and my daughters are precious to me.
Do you think they've forgiven you?
I don't know.
You should ask them. I bet you they have.
What would you have to do to forgive yourself?
Good question.
Either right now or very soon.
I'll just change myself like I am, to show them that I'm different than the person that you learned. Don't get me wrong, I was, spectacular up until that point when they were 11 and 12. Like, I literally was, everything, from full supportive in everything that they ever did, and positive coaching, because that's who I am. That's what I live and breathe always.
Yeah.
And it was just it changed their perception of me, and I never wanted that to happen. But I can't take full blame in it, even though I did it, because I'm not the only player in my universe.
Yeah.
So,
hold that out there, the idea that I promise you, your daughters have forgiven you. And then when you feel that, you'll be able to forgive yourself as well. You're human, bro. Chris?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Because I was going to say congratulations, because you're following a path similar to what I followed, although I think I've been following it maybe a bit longer than you have. But yeah, it's a good path to be on. But I do have a question, because you said you carried this around. I have anger issues. I'm not sure if it's necessarily quite as bad as you said, but I have them. But I internalize them really, really bad. And so I just wonder if you can comment on any kind of physical symptoms you've had if you internalize it a lot. I speculate you do internalize it, because that's a way to manage it too, is to internalize it all.
Yeah, I just think the last 3 to 5 years, something and it's sometimes changing just your everything, you know, your environment that you're in, you know, maybe, you know, moving to a different place that you've always, you know, harbored that for so long.
Yeah.
Just a new chapter of your life. And that's where I am. And I feel like it's almost like a rebirth. And that's what's allowed me to just approach it different. And even a lot of times in traffic, that, you know, that's it's agitating and it turns into anger. But, you know, 10 years ago I would get so irritated and angry in traffic, but now I just look in my rear view and say, you know, it's in my rear view.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually physically say.
This 5-year time frame that you keep referring to, does that have anything to do with your Walmart experience?
No, I think it had to do with just internal, deep soul searching. You know, I've been hurt so much in my life, and maybe in a certain sense hurt the people around me, not physically, but, you know, emotionally. And, you know, I'm not a evil guy. I'm a good person, but it's something that I just had to change. I didn't want it anymore. I couldn't be that anymore, you know. And surprisingly enough, you know, if you think for a moment, how many households, you know, whether you're alone, whether you're in just a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, fiance, you know, one child, many children in the house, with married, it's complex. And with that many more people, the psyches in the house, it becomes that much more of a complex universe.
Amen. So Chris asked a question that I don't feel like you really addressed, and I personally want to answer it, Chris, and I would love to know if anyone else in here has a tangible answer for it. It's always been very hard for me to swallow my anger, Chris, because I have fibromyalgia and I'm hypersensitive to like what everything my body's feeling. And if I don't express my anger, it gets trapped in a ball in my fucking stomach that feels like I ate a bunch of lasagna, and I can't really do anything because I feel this fucking knot, and it's gonna turn into a dump that won't move through my body, or cancer. Like, I can feel it's one or the other. And when I let it out, like, it goes away and my stomach feels better. Does anyone else have a like anything you'd like to share about how you feel when you don't express your anger?
Are you asking me?
Anybody?
Oh, okay. Anybody?
Well, I have.
You had one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have some autoimmune symptoms, so I can feel emotions in my body. Like, I'll literally get neuropathy or like muscle pains when I'm upset or feel uncomfortable. I'm trying to think of anything else. So yeah, I've been working a lot too on releasing everything and just listening to my body with it, keeping the score.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
I could add one.
Go ahead, buddy.
When there is anger, there has to be an expression to let go. And the technique that I've been kind of using sometimes at home is like stomping and dancing to release that.
Moshing.
Rage against the machine.
Headbang. Headbang. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Let it out.
That's how I broke my nose.
Punching pillows. Do whatever you got to do. Thank you for that.
I got one more for Chris.
Okay.
To wrap it up. Is having this experience and chatting about anger, making it any easier, or can you talk to your daughters and your wife in maybe a more coherent manner about this kind or various kinds of subjects of this nature?
Yeah, I'm a very open person. I can talk with anyone about very deep emotional stuff. It's kind of how I was raised. Even though it was turbulent, you know, a lot. I thankfully I had a family that just taught me the art of communication, and it's so important. And, you know, especially for someone you really care about, you know, family or, you know, close friends, that you really should, there should be no topic that you can't talk about, because it's so important. It's so important for yourself. It's so important for them. So no matter what the topics are, I feel I'll open up the door, and maybe everyone else that I'm around are not so free with talk or comfortable talking about those topics.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to give Chris some props, because I've known him for over a year now, and he's a super positive guy, and I've never heard him say anything negative about anybody, and it always annoyed me. And so to him get up here and share something that felt negative to him, I want to give him super props. Thank you, brother. That was beautiful and vulnerable. Thank you.
Yeah. Big love. All right. Yep.
Great. Who's next?
You're back in the creation station.
Come on.
Come on, buddy. You want?
I'll go.
Oh, now we got.
Sorry, here we go.
Sorry. Actually, Sharam was ready to go first, and then we'll get you next month.
Volunteered me.
Oh, okay then.
Go ahead, my man.
Oh, go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, come on. You got to do it, bro. You do. You've been in your cave for a while. Now you're out in public.
I'm ready.
You can pick any bandana you want, or just have your eyes closed.
Just do right.
Oh yeah, that's why we close our eyes and have the bandana. So.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's a good job.
Alrighty. Go for it.
Beautiful. Tell us your name and tell us anything you can share with us about anger from your perspective.
Sure. So my name is Sharam, and I was kind of thinking about like hearing the other stories as to when did I start getting angry, and I came to the realization that for the first time I got angry was during my first marriage that did not work out. And the reason was for me not being able to express myself clearly, or for my ex-wife to have her own stories wrapped out in her mind about me that I couldn't change anyway. And my lack of being able to convince her that that's not the case, this is what it is. And that's where I realized that was the first time I could feel anger in me. It is the lack of communication that made it happen for me.
Yourself. What? You're angry at yourself?
Angry at myself, angry at the situation, angry at the ex.
Not feeling heard.
Yes, not being heard.
That's always made me very angry also. So my first question is, how the fuck do you make it that long in your life without getting angry?
Fuck knows.
like how does that happen, bro? You just accept everybody's shit your whole life? Like how does that?
I don't. It's, look, I'm skeptical of that statement, man.
you gotta explain this to us.
You had to be like 6 years old and fucking kick some kid or something.
You're like Mr. Rogers or something. Like how does that even work?
Like
your toy, something.
No, I would be confused and feeling hurt or some of those, but never angry at a situation. Like I was always confused about my dad's situation and why and all that good stuff on a different topic for a soul night. But like I was sitting back there and like, no, I did not feel angry for till the time I was married, and then I realized, fuck, this is like, I don't even recognize myself.
Right. Like how I can't even imagine an adult being angry for the first time. Like, what the fuck is happening?
Well, then that makes me think. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Do you have or have you had issues expressing any emotion?
Good question.
Yeah, people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Not recovering.
Yeah.
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that.
I think there's probably something that digs deeper than you even know. I was trying to think about topics as well, and the more I think, the further back I can go. I think it takes a lot of just digging deep, introspection, exactly, to find it deeper. And it's a really tough thing to do.
But maybe nobody pushed your buttons the way she did. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe everybody else in your life had accepted your truth. Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, there was a lot of pity around me from my family, from my relatives. There was a lot of like, oh,
Did you say pity?
pity.
Why did they pity you?
Just long story. My mom passed away, my sister passed away, my dad was not living with me. So there was a lot of like,
Orphan.
yeah, kind of, but I never felt like an orphan growing up. My aunt raised me, so never felt an orphan.
Were you exposed to anger as a kid from your guardians, your parents, No, they were chill, huh?
Yeah, they were pretty chill.
There you go.
Oh.
You never saw it demonstrated.
No.
That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
That
What,
makes a
what
lot of
about what
sense.
about beyond your guardians and in society in general? Were you exposed to anger in that regard?
There was fear of others growing up, and I would avoid those people. But I wouldn't feel angry. Like right now, my perception of anger was like it's like a peaceful warrior. You can either respond or react, and lately, like last few years, I've been trying to practice the not react but respond to anger. So like I'll take my time and then show my anger, whether it's my middle finger to the driver behind me like I did coming here.
Flipping birds
Yeah,
on the way to the
exactly.
anger meeting. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, you have to tell me. This is like an anthropological thing here. You have to tell me like describe what happened to you. Like the first time you're like getting angry. Like what happened? Did you like throw a fit? Did you scream? Did you break some shit? Like what happened?
Yeah, there was a lot of screaming and yelling in my first marriage. And like the point when I realized like fuck, I don't even recognize myself anymore. Like there were examples where my friend's sister would message my first ex-wife and say, oh, he's the sweetest boy or something like that. So my ex would think like I was like interested in her, and that was never the case. But I could never express myself in that way. Like, no, she's just a friend, sister, that's all. She's more like a sister to me than anything else. But I couldn't express myself and she wouldn't get it. So it would just lead bubble up to the point when I remember I got so frustrated with her that I made a hole in the wall. And like I was like, fuck, what did I just do? Like, wow, I'm strong in some way.
It feels good sometimes to break a table, damn it.
Yeah, so like, wow, fuck, okay. Like I don't ever remember, like I did not recognize myself at that point of time. I said, no, this is not worth it because we have young kids and let's move on. And right now, like the last time or whenever it was when I spoke to my 15-year-old, she said, yeah, Dad, you guys made the right decision to move on. Like it was not worth it. And so it was like, yeah, I don't think we did. And right now my relationship with my first ex is like awesome. Like she'll send me scriptures, even though she knows that I don't follow Christians, I mean the Catholic faith. And like I will still love that message and say I'm open, like I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing for yourself. So yeah.
What is your most recent experience of anger and what resulted from it?
Oh, that on the way back. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Bigger than that. Let's go bigger than that. What is your most prominent experience of anger, and what was the result of it?
It was the end of my second marriage. That brought out a lot of.
You just gotta stop getting married, bro.
I've given up.
He's figured that out. Okay, that's not my kind of thing.
You don't need 4 or 5 more.
No, I'm done with 2. I'm good.
Fool me once.
I know.
All right, and I interrupted, and I'm sorry about that. Please continue.
I wasn't sure about the lesson to learn, so I had to repeat it.
Right, we gotta clarify.
Are you sure you know, versus that really what you want me to do? So there was a lot of anger about not being angry, because like my first marriage was full of anger, which is why we split and moved on. And my second one was not based on anger. So I was like really fucking confused as to like, why do I feel like this? Like, why is this relationship like, there is no anger, there's no yelling, there's no screaming, there is no verbal abuse, but it was all a lot of emotional variables that flowed in with the second one that was way different from the first one. And like I was like really like confused, or oh wait, that's confusion, or angry as well, like how the fuck is this happening right now, because I don't have those variables from the first. But we're still splitting, and we're certain we're splitting, so like what the fuck is happening here? So that
Was that anger at her or you?
C, all of the above.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I wonder why there's so much correlation between, like you said, romance and anger. Like it seems that for you that was a theme, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's...
Right. I think that was a lot to do with like self-love, and I was lacking that because my perception of love was someone had to give it to me as an exchange, and that's the second lesson that I learned. Well, the first lesson that I learned from my second one was like I need to love myself because I cannot look outwardly for love. I need to look inwardly for love.
Oh, that's a beautiful lesson.
Amen. Amen.
That's what I learned.
Amen. I have a thought to the question, though. I think everybody has a different kind of answer to that, and I was able to clean up a lot of my anger pretty quickly, but the relationship has this like, it's like there's this vulnerability. There's this like people know you really deeply, and that gives them the ability to hurt you really deeply, whether they're trying to or not. And those triggers tend to go to our youngest, oldest wounds, you know. But like a friend doesn't have access to the same trigger, and a coworker doesn't have access to the same trigger. They can't make me feel the way my partner can, you know. That's just my perspective. Anybody else got one on that?
I got one on that, and that is that the anger is the symptom. The anger is what we outwardly see and feel and show to the world or to your partner. But the anger is caused by something deeper, like what he was saying. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not that the relationship broke up because of anger. It's the anger was expressed because of a misalignment of other energies or interests within the relationship.
The anger is a symptom.
Correct. So this is where I see the positive side of anger, and that is to have the anger be the exhibit of the underlying issues to create the catalyst for moving to the next phase of your life.
Right.
If you didn't have the anger, but you still had all of the misalignments, now, it could have turned to something else. It could have turned to apathy. It could have turned to depression. It could have turned to various other different emotions. But anger in many cases is the one that prompts people to react the biggest, or in some cases the biggest. And to make the separation was probably, I will say, definitely the most positive outcome of the anger.
That's deep.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a question for Sharam?
Do you associate anger with love?
Say what?
Do you associate anger with love?
No.
Do you?
No.
Interesting
In
question.
some sense.
Yeah.
Interesting question, and I've known people that do. Totally.
Well, because there's a lot of people that have been raised by, I smack the shit out of you because I love you.
I dated a girl like that, that it was like she would push you to violence because that's how her parents made up.
That's right.
Mom would end up getting hurt, and dad would then apologize and they'd make up. And
right, because the makeup sex was better than the fucking violence.
Yeah, and she pushed me to throw in my keys, and I put a hole in the wall too, and it felt good. I was like, damn. Totally.
All right, we're about to make a switch right here and a bathroom break, so hurry up.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. It's about 10 to 9 right now, but fuck, we live here. We're gonna stay anyway.
It's not a school night. It's not a school night.
Let's just play it out and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Tell us your name and anything you can out of the gate about your experience of anger.
Okay. My name is actually Josh. Monty's my nickname. Last name's Montgomery. Question for you guys first. What do you guys think about jealousy versus anger?
If that's what you're feeling, go, bro. Totally. Love it.
I think I was trying to think about anger, and there's two like specific subgenres that gets me angry after digging deep.
All right, go there, man. You're thinking it's somebody else's too.
Maybe. Sorry, this thing's weird on my eyes. So one, after digging deep into my mind, at first I was like, I don't feel like I get angry much. I think it happens sporadically after a long amount of time throughout life. But I think, because it's very situational, but I think things that get me angry involve racism. And also, I'm 22, so I haven't dug deep into this, but excited to ask my...
Hold it, quick question.
Yeah.
Racism, are you for or against?
Great question. Against.
Okay, all right.
You never know nowadays.
Oh, that is crazy how that was worded, because it just seemed like I'm angry. No. No. Angry against racism and seeing it prevalent in certain areas. As well as I've seen myself get angry over drunk people. So I don't know which one to dive into, but
what's your intuition tell you?
What happened to jealousy? How do we skip that one?
that was just the question of like which one is earliest. I have noticed throughout my life at random times that I've gotten jealous of seeing someone that I value highly value someone else and not show me any attention. I think it's this like attention seeking side of me.
Yeah.
I remember this one specific experience. It was so strange. I was at a hangout with two friends, and this one friend that I hung out with a lot was showing this other friend a lot of attention, and they were kind of almost like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but not showing me a lot of attention, and a lot of jealousy built up. And I was like, I don't even know what age I was. I was very young, but I didn't actually do anything. I think it was more of a symbol to show them. I grabbed a kitchen knife in the kitchen, and I like stood over the stairs just to like threaten them with like that sight. Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy thing you do when you're a kid. I wasn't gonna like stab him or anything. There was nothing violent there. It was more of like a symbol. But that was like a first one I thought of. Very strange.
How old
memory.
were you?
I don't know. Maybe early elementary school or something.
And did you go Chucky often? Like, was that like a normal thing?
No.
Okay.
No, that's why that one resonates for some reason.
Right.
I can't think of really.
That's a powerful memory.
It is, right? It's. I feel like only my mother knew that before this. So.
Thank you for sharing, brother.
Yeah, man.
And with that jealousy, can you explain like where it comes from? Like what happens inside of you?
I guess, like I said, that like wanting attention thing. When I saw, I guess it's the feeling of like feeling less or like
Right.
isolated.
Worthiness.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
shunned. You wanted to be part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think I've earned my way to not feel that as much
Nice.
by connecting with people. So I'm very grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Like I
And
said, this is-
what were the other ways that you had noticed anger?
I said racism and drunk people was the 2 topics.
Go into racism.
Okay.
What are some examples of
Mm-hmm.
events that created anger within you?
And has anyone ever been racist to you?
No,
Gotcha.
not that I'm aware of. I think I'm very interested in like diverse cultures and experiences and people, and I've always been so open-minded to that since I was really young. And I grew up in maybe not unfortunately, but I kind of viewed it as unfortunately like a very, very heavily majority white area, kind of like you were saying. And the people there, it wasn't like a crazy racist town or anything, but the people there would kind of just like not understand that if you're white, you should not be saying the N-word. So there was a lot of that thrown around, and for some reason that always just dug so deep, and it would get me so mad.
Were these older people or people your peers as well?
It was like actually both, like just ignorant people my age, as well as if my parents would like hear a rap song. It's just a lot of ignorance sometimes for like older folks as well, like just a lack of understanding that it's just not right.
Funny enough, I heard it all the time around black people, bro.
Can you elaborate? What do you mean?
Yeah, black people say the N-word way more than white people.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, just ironic that you heard it all the time, and then I heard it all the time in totally different environments.
Mm-hmm. Did it anger you?
When white people said it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's never angered me when black people say it because it means something different.
Yeah.
It means something different, and it doesn't hurt any black person's feelings if a white person says it like black people do. It's not a race thing, it's a culture thing. I know a lot of white people that grew up in the hood and can say the N-word all they want and nobody cares. It's a culture thing, you know?
Yes.
And as damaging as it is to their culture, like there's a reason they usurped it. Like you can't take this from us. This is our thing, you know? But I've seen it wielded as hate, and it's very, very distasteful. It's very, very it's very hard to not spew hate back at it, to not want to fight it immediately. And but that doesn't help though. That doesn't help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to another experience, probably the most recent, I think it was just under a year ago, to intertwine the drunk with that, I went to this kid's birthday party, and like it was his college friends. It was a graduation party, and he was like, "Oh, you'll love my friends," and I had this like intuitive feeling that I kind of wouldn't.
I know that feeling.
And that was right, because all those friends got drunk, and I don't know, there's just this like loss of control that people have that really just shows that the mask that they put on when they are sober, because once they get drunk they open up, and I mean, I've never drank, so I don't know the whole truth behind like your real self comes out, like I hear, but it seems to be that way. And when I see people, when they start to get drunk, just totally change into maybe the person that they actually are rather than the mask that they've put on, that angers me, especially when what comes out is that.
What have you seen come out?
Well, just those friends, I don't know what it is with the N-word, but they were just saying it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it really annoyed me, man, but it just kept coming out. And
what'd you do?
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard.
Yep.
I just met them that day. What a horrible impression on them as people.
Right.
That's what I was.
Sieg Heil.
Right. That's what I was thinking, was like, dang, you know what's crazy is I I kind of felt like the only one that cared. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. So I was just kind of sitting there. The anger built up, actually, and I didn't get it out in any way.
Yep.
Which sucked.
It's really fucking hard, bro, to be a joy kill like that and just be like, this is not cool. And I had a tow truck driver saying the N-word to me. I guess he assumed I was Spanish, you know. And I didn't say anything either because I knew I wasn't gonna change him. It's like whatever, bro. Like, just get me home. You know, it's a weird place to be. I feel that, man.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Questions? Comments?
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if you had a family member who had issues with alcohol or someone who's hurt you that led you to hold your anger towards seeing people and how they act when they're under the influence.
Good question.
That is a great question. My dad does, I would say he's an alcoholic. He hasn't hurt me though.
But you've seen it affect him though, right?
Yeah, I've seen him.
You have less respect for him?
Less respect than if he didn't drink?
Correct.
That's a hard thing to admit.
Nice.
Well then what's the answer?
I would say I did see, thinking back, I like to see, I guess I've rarely seen him sober, like completely sober. But the times that I do, I like that, in anybody really, I like that side better.
Is that why you don't drink?
Yeah, yes, I do want to experience my life sober. That's why. I don't want to find out. I think because, thank you. I think because he is addicted and I kind of have an addictive personality, I think.
Yep.
I don't want to find out if I like it because I think I would.
Very intentional, brother. I love that for you, man.
Thank you.
I want to offer a perspective, and that is that you had mentioned when people drink, or at least the situations that you've seen, the real self comes out. I would just like to offer the perspective that it's not necessarily their real self, just another self. And people do have the real self of them being sober, the real self of them being drunk, the real self of them being with a bunch of friends that have that energy, the other self, the other real self that has a workplace situation self. So everybody has these various different selves that they're able to tap into, and depending on whatever the situation most allows.
True, and a lot of people aren't angry drunk. Some people are super lovey. Some people are super chatty. You know
That's
what I mean?
a good point. Yes.
So very good point, brother. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else have a thought or question?
I was thinking about what we would say is the opposite of anger. And I was thinking it might just be apathy.
Typically, the opposite of anger is considered to be love, but apathy would feel like in the middle between, like that'd be in the
apathy would be going down the tone scale. And this is another thing that I've personally experienced, and that is being in a state of depression and near apathy, and then moving up the tone scale, the emotional tone scale, to anger and feeling invigorated by the anger.
Anger's a higher frequency.
Anger's a higher frequency.
Than apathy.
Correct. And this is what I had mentioned earlier too, that can be the positive side of anger, because if you're in a state of apathy where you don't give a fuck about nothing and you don't even want to get out of bed, or you're in a state of depression, then it can be invigorating to then move up to the anger, because now you're going to do some shit about it. And that's the catalyst for getting to the next phase of whatever you're moving to.
And anger is a higher frequency than sadness as well, which is why a lot of us express anger when we're feeling sad, is it feels more empowering than sadness. Sadness feels like weakness.
You know, I'm going to pull up, I'll post the tone scale, the emotional tone scale in the invite later, tomorrow or the next day or Monday or something, so that we can see where emotions lie on the spectrum. So you've got, love is way at the top, apathy is way at the bottom, and then then there's happiness, there's joy, there's various different positive emotions, and then you get into sadness, despair, anger, what you said too, jealousy, exactly, frustration. These are all other emotions.
Shame is the weakest. It's the heaviest emotion you can have. It's at the bottom of the scale. Shame.
Isn't anger most of the time you're hiding your sadness through anger? Like if you peel back all the layers of why you're angry, it's just like a sad child.
I don't know that it's that cut and dry, but I know that a lot of anger, sadness is underlying it. But I think there's other emotions that make people angry as well.
I feel like it would be situational. And I feel that, like we had talked a little bit about before, different types of anger, different durations of anger, where, like, I just had a text conversation with my brother who lives his life in a state of perpetual anger. And it's because of the politics that he believes. It's because that he believes that he's a narcissist that believes that humans are pieces of shit. And so he just has this perpetual underlying anger at everything, which is different than a more sort of isolated situational anger, like somebody cutting you off in traffic and you flipping your fun finger, and then it's over with shortly after that. That's not perpetual anger. That's just a little blip.
Okay, let's bring it back to Monty. And I want to know, has there ever been a moment in your life where you tasted like righteous anger, where it was like needed?
Where what was needed? Anger was needed?
Yeah. Have you ever tasted a moment of righteous anger where it saved you or helped you or saved someone else, or you were able to do the right thing because of it?
I don't think I've ever really... I think I've unfortunately... Actually, I don't know if it's unfortunate or not. Bottled it up every time almost. I do remember this one time, another drunk moment. This guy at this deli, it was like the middle of the night, and the worker, I don't know the actual situation specifically, but the worker was like doing something slower than the guy wanted to, and he was like, there's a reason that, like, you're behind. He was like degrading his position, his role as the cash register guy, and he was like, there's a reason you're working behind there and I work at my job, like saying he was like higher up. I guess it's always like value for me for some reason, like the perception of value of people. But I remember for the first time in my life, I turned, faced my body fully towards him, and I was staring at him with like my fists together. Like I wanted so bad to either say something in front of everyone that was at that deli or do something, and I kind of wish I did. I really did wish I said something at least. Like, bro, you don't talk to him like that, but what sucks is I didn't, I think.
That's okay, though, but you felt it, bro. You felt it. And I love that you acknowledge that you've always bottled it up. That's what they teach you to do if you're white.
Yeah, I gotta release it, man.
Well, okay, this is a learning experience, though, dude, because these situations will make themselves aware to you again. You've had more conscious thought, you've had more reason, you've had more understanding of these situations now, and you can then face a similar situation with now an almost sort of rehearsed reply.
Righteous anger.
So these situations will arise again, and now you're going to know how to handle them in a way that makes you feel better about being a witness to it.
You've got righteous anger homework.
Yeah, man.
And we want to hear about it, man. And next time you do it, you got to film it too, man, and post it up.
Hey, don't you talk to him like
There
that.
you go. There you go. I love it. I love it. Anybody else got anything?
I guess what would you do in that situation?
I would have loved to have spoken up rather than like punched him or something.
Right.
I would have loved to have told him, don't
Tell
you
him
talk
off.
to that worker like that.
Tell
Like,
them off.
you are no better. In fact, you're like, you are worse than him doing this. Like, you are a horrible person for saying that. I don't know.
Rehearse it.
Actually, I do know.
Rehearse it. Let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
I think you can change this timeline. Like acting this out now can
Right.
change that timeline.
Right.
You can totally
Well-
transmute that.
And the other angle to look at it, the fully positive angle to look at it is to not then degrade the guy who was an asshole, but to show him a better way of existence.
Thank you guys for your wise wisdom. Wise wisdom. It's a great perspective.
Thank you for your redundancy.
No, I'm very open to learn. I'm very open to learning here because I think there is good ways of going about situations like that.
I can feel that you've been avoiding conflict.
Yes,
for
I do
a
that.
lot of your life, and you're taught to do that. And I invite you to let yourself, at some point, in your future, let yourself honor what you're feeling. And it doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. If people are using the N-word, it doesn't mean you have to go off on them. But there's ways to just be like, I don't appreciate, you talking to someone like that. I don't-
Vocalize it?
Yeah, there's a way to speak to it. And if you can do it from a calm place, it very often has a better effect than if you do it from an angry place.
Like the next time somebody is using the N-word in that situation, I mean, it might be something like, "Hey, man, I don't resonate with that kind of frequency or that language."
Something that simple can, and they're like, oh,
You just throw it out there, let that be the response, and then allow whatever happens to happens after that.
Right, and you have to be willing to take one for it, because if prejudiced people feel you judging them, then they want to judge you too. Like, oh, you're not cool, you're not down, I can't,
So you don't
that's
make them the
something
asshole about
that's
it.
something that you. But even if you don't make them the asshole, if people are used to judging others and you make them feel bad for it, they fucking judge you too. And something in him knows that, and he doesn't want to get that. He doesn't want to receive that scorn. You know what I'm saying? And I have not wanted to deal with that before when people were assuming I was, Spanish or whatever, and talking about black people. There has to be a willingness to be like, I'm going to honor how I'm feeling, and you can think whatever you need to about me, to be able to draw that line.
Acceptance. It's not a judgment of what you think they're going to judge you as. It's the acceptance that you're just going to say what you're going to say.
This is what I'm feeling, and I'm going to express it. Totally. It's possible.
And yeah, they're going to think something about it. But you, coming from the perspective that you're in, it would have no effect, or it should have little to no effect on you. Just to state what you're going to state, and be acceptant of whatever else happens after that.
Right, because it might not be good, and you need to be willing to. You know what I'm saying? Like, people aren't going to treat you the same way if they feel that you're judging them for judging others.
And you want to be around those people anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it bad for them to judge you if you don't belong in those groups anyway?
Right.
But the thing is, you were morally hurt by hearing what they had to say, and you were disgusted by sitting there and having to listen to what they were saying and build up all this resentment and anger for all that shit that they were talking about, rather than just saying, I don't resonate with that language.
Yeah, I was holding back from speaking my truth.
Yeah. And everybody does it, bro. Don't feel bad about it, but you'll feel better inside when you start speaking it.
And this is flower child language now. I mean, the regular people out there, they don't talk about resonation, but we can bring that more into the zeitgeist now, because it is all frequency. Anger is a frequency. Love is a frequency, and and we can talk about them in terms of frequency now and make that the new conscious vocabulary of an awakening planet.
Totally. Anybody else?
Indeed.
Thank you, brother. Great work.
If there's time.
Yes, dude. Come on.
Let's do it, bro. Look, anybody can look. It's after 9 right now. Let me double check.
Yeah, I already let them know. They can leave if
Okay.
they
Yeah,
want
so
to.
anybody can leave if y'all want to,
You're funny.
but just hang out too. And we got food to eat afterwards.
Oh, it's nice closing your eyes in there.
Right? It helps.
It's a whole different feeling,
Connor,
man.
close your eyes because I saw.
Yeah, I'm closing them.
Okay.
They're closed.
It gets you out of your head. All right, tell us your name and anything off the top of your head you can share about anger.
My name is Connor, and there's a lot that comes up with anger. Some of it in my earlier life, which I think we've all touched on. Some of it more recently, and I think there's maybe 2 or 3 themes that have come up that I maybe want to vocalize, which is that anger is the result of something underneath that's actually a lot more insidious, I think. Jason, you're mentioning this. And I think that for me, I've struggled over the last several years with anxiety. Some of it is workplace induced, some of it was relationships, some of it was family, some of it was all sorts of other things. And then out of this process, I actually went to therapy and got diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So, that was as an adult. So for most of my life, I had struggled in various other ways, but had never gotten to the point of being that bad. And I realized that throughout these periods, I've become more conscious in the last 6 to 9 months, maybe a little bit longer, of sort of how my anxiety can cause anger or resentment to build up. But one of the things I've noticed is that there are lots of aspects of myself in my workplace, in my interactions with others, where I tend to unconsciously step on other people's toes and provoke anger in others. And I've been reflecting on what are the different things that have caused that to come up so consistently, to the point where some folks around me have even gone so far as to say, not directly to me, but in not unequivocal terms, that being in the environment with me has brought out an anger within them that they have never experienced in their entire lives, and they can't even recognize themselves.
Goodness.
So,
Can you get an example of that?
mostly in the context of someone feeling unheard, perhaps mistrusted, in an environment where I'm perhaps taking up too much space, or perhaps because of my anxiety, trying to control the situation. Mostly I've noticed around women. I don't consider myself to be I aspire to be inclusive. I see the value that we all bring to different situations, but also perhaps due to my own neurodivergence, I have a very difficult time recognizing social cues. So around more shy personas, typically this can come across as being sexist in front of women, mostly in the workplace and mostly in group settings. But that's something that's been coming up for me a lot recently, and I feel a lot of shame towards myself for not being able to recognize these situations as they're happening in real time. And I feel that a lot of it comes from a place of passion, a positive intent that can I'm losing my words for this here. A positive intent that can come across in me losing sight of the reactions of other people. So I'm so focused on situations and the technical aspects of how to do something or solve something or build something or whatever else that I lose sight of the people and the impacts it has on their emotions, and I'm angry at myself for that.
First become aware that sometimes the things you would do and say around people would become irritating to others?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, I think even growing up, the challenge for, I guess I have to go back a little bit for that one. For me, growing up, I grew up in an environment where emotions were not really discussed. And shall I say, there were some folks in my family who had struggled with very significant issues of the same nature. So, like, for example, my parents sometimes wouldn't recognize, my mom specifically, when the situation maybe wasn't socially acceptable to do something. There's oftentimes a lack of regard for how certain situations might impact other people. And I also struggle with that. Can you repeat your question?
When was the first time that you became aware that some of the things that you were doing and saying were having a detrimental effect on others?
Yeah.
But your answer was very valid, and I can feel that your mother had trouble picking up those cues as well, correct?
Yeah, she had trouble picking them up. And for most of my early childhood, I myself never understood that was perhaps an issue. It was so normalized for me. Till maybe 13, I remember one of my friends who had come over to our household a lot. He had shared to me, your mom in these situations, it seems very odd, or maybe a little bit too much. And I think there's better terms that they use, but that was the first time I ever realized that, oh wow, like maybe that isn't normal. And so I think that, but that wasn't for me. So it wasn't.
So somebody pointed out to you about your mom.
Yeah, right. So that's the first time I even the first seed of thought around, hey, like these types of situations aren't normal. Maybe taking up too much space, cutting people off, not giving people the right eye contact, adult tantrums in public. All of these things to me were so normalized up until that point. And even after that point, it wasn't until much later in life that I realized in myself that same sort of thing was happening. When I was younger, I was also on the other side of it too. So bullied all through high school. My expression, walking down the gym hallway, very narrow hallway, with everyone in my class. This must have been 7th grade. Hundreds of dudes in the locker room sitting down on a very, very thin hallway. I don't know if the code was different back then, but they don't build hallways that thin anymore. But some dude pantsed me, underwear and all, at the beginning of the hallway, and I didn't like think. I just started running naked down the entire thing, and then I didn't know where to go, so I just left. But I didn't have pants on. They fell off. So after that, like my entire rest of my school forward was just so tainted by that experience. And I was very angry at the person who did it, and also at myself for just not like processing that. And at the time, my only outlet I wasn't into sports. I didn't have any violent nature in me whatsoever. But the only outlet for that emotion that would have definitely led to apathy, depression, or anger was music. And I wrote songs that really allowed me to express those emotions as best as I could, because I didn't have the feminine energy in my life. Of course, given the family situation, emotions weren't really talked about. So I felt like if that didn't somehow come out, it would have quite literally caused, pain leading to, illness and other things. And
I guess that doesn't really answer your question of when I noticed it affecting others, but it must have been in the time period after my anxiety started to really consume me, mostly starting around the pandemic. There were a lot of energies out of my control, a lot of very high stress situations with a ton of burden on my shoulders to do things a certain way and to deliver in environments that I couldn't understand. And I kept finding myself extraordinarily surprised when I would go through with the best of intentions to try to help others, only to find out that not only was I not being helpful, but sometimes I would help people in all different ways in the workplace and at home, and then find out later on at the end of the day, or sometimes weeks or months later, sometimes not even directly, that my help was actually complete, like my perception of me being helpful was completely off base, to the point where actually I was really hurting this person, and the feedback loop was so poor that I couldn't get that information in any timely manner. And I had such poor self-awareness of these issues that it would take me so long. And what would happen, and is still happening to some extent, is that I would learn about something, feel absolutely devastated about it, but it's so far in the past, there's nothing I could do to change that at this point. And I couldn't necessarily recognize as it's happening. So I've gone from the point of maybe recognizing it 3 to 6 months after to recognizing it 30 to 60 minutes afterwards, in some cases, and that's helped me begin to navigate it. But it's kind of like if you're driving with a blindfold on, like you need to have some sort of voice telling you where to turn.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you for the depth of your share, and I feel the weight of what you've been dealing with your whole life. And I didn't find out I was on the spectrum till 35, but you're carrying a lot of differences that I didn't have to struggle with. And how you explained all of it was very, very clear, and I really love how much you care, and I feel your heart through that, and I feel how shortchanged you were at home with what you were given, with what you were taught, and I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
Connor,
Yeah.
Through the story, you had mentioned things that you would do that other people would then somehow, like the grapevine would get back to you, that these things were of a detriment to them. Can you be very specific as to what any one of those things were that you now know?
I think almost all of them come from a place of me being I can give you an example, but the theme is my anxiety is spreads to others. So with my ex-girlfriend, a relationship that started off very balanced became imbalanced when she began to pull away from the situation, and my response was to text more, to write more, to become, we were in distance at this point, to try to be helpful, but it was coming from a place of fear and anxiety, and it came across as smothering and controlling.
Oh, okay.
Really,
okay.
really received about as poorly as possible. And I also didn't recognize the difference at the time, and perhaps have gotten better at this, but not fully there, to realizing that we sometimes, if you have struggled with anxiety or autism, I think it's easy to confuse helping from a place of anxiety to helping from a place of trying to make someone else's life easier. And when you're helping from a place of anxiety, you're not really helping. That's just an internal justification for why.
Yeah, right.
You know what?
You're just expelling out the anxiety, and they're receiving the anxiety, regardless of whatever the message is.
Yeah.
And anxiety is definitely communicable because all emotions are.
It's another frequency.
People can catch it, and if they feel anxiety around you, they don't want to be around you, and it's not like they can't help it, you know. So it's good to see that.
And the other part of that is with autism, I can get very fixated into certain patterns. If I get used to something a certain way, and then one day everything's different, and perhaps I picked this up from my family, that could be a big source of anxiety. I've seen growing up plenty of adult tantrums for things going not exactly to plan, and the idea of being flexible and kind of keeping like a zen presence through situations that might not even be harmful to you, but they also might not be exactly the way that they were supposed to go. That's I want to say, like, it's a lot harder as a neurodivergent because there are so many different factors that that cause a lot of challenges, and so one of our coping mechanisms often is to try to control the situation, to control the environment, to make sure there aren't any unexpected encounters with strange energies, to make sure there aren't periods where maybe I'm running late to something and now I'm counting down every minute, my heart is beating, and every action I take from that place is going to spread to another person.
Question.
Yeah.
I can feel how you kind of see reality and you kind of want it to be a certain way, and everybody does. And I'm wondering if you can imagine that reality is just reality and it's never a certain way for anyone, and it's not controllable by anyone, and that there could be a way that you could just witness it and let it happen without needing to control it. Is that an idea you could possibly see in your mind?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think from my point of highest integration, yes.
Well said.
What do you mean by that?
Good question. Good question.
Sounds like he got it, but I
know exactly what he means, but I would love to know if he does. It was very well chosen words.
It's
say it again.
From my point of highest integration, yes. I did the Enneagram assessment. My number that came back was an 8, which Enneagram is a personality assessment, and 8, the term is active controller, which means that I'm the type of person, I don't take a ton of stock in all of these tests, but I think it's pretty accurate for me. I'm the type of person who really wants to control the situation, and of course that can be very negative for the people around me, but at sort of in the best version of that, it becomes a protector role, someone who can really, when things go horribly wrong, someone you can really depend on and count on, and that's, I think, the difference between when I'm operating out of fear versus operating out of love. And I think that one of the things that keeps coming up about this anger conversation is that that's a continuum, and for some people operating out of fear, they hit this side of the spectrum, or sort of like this side of the dial, and then boom, there's an explosion over here. But what if you're operating right here? You never hit the explosion, but you're spending your whole life operating out of fear. It's going to cause all these untold challenges, and you wouldn't even really notice until much later that, like, oh my gosh, everything's off track. So what I'm trying to work on now is check-ins with myself through yoga has been very helpful. Breathing's been more helpful. I've also done some journaling, not the best at it. But basically check-ins to figure out, okay, in a given moment, where am I on this dial? I don't want to find out from one extreme or the other. I want to know where I am on the dial so I can, like, act accordingly. And for me, like, to that point specifically, if I'm in a conversation and I'm trying to be listening actively, the moment that I have a thought that I can't like get over or get beyond me, it starts to consume me. And maybe for the first 20 or 30 minutes, I can still listen. After about 60 minutes, I'm not listening anymore, because that thought's just like starting to take mind share. And then maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours go by with that thought. Like, I have to get it out. And if it's like 3 hours, then it's coming out in a really bad way. And maybe I'm cutting people off at this point. Maybe I'm just like being downright domineering at this point. And I found that I have to just write it down and just get it. It has to come out immediately, before it gets to that point.
I want to tell you a word that a buddy of mine said, and I was like, thank you for that. Social quota. When you reach your social quota, you need to remove yourself.
Yeah.
Because after that point, it's only going to get worse. You understand? There's only so much of random energy, random conversation, random thoughts, diminishing returns, and you got to turn it off. Like, thank you. And so, learn to recognize your social quota, and when you're done, politely excuse yourself so you don't embarrass yourself. And on that note, what I want to know is, we've talked a lot about other people's anger. I want to know if you've ever gotten angry.
Yeah, I definitely have. I think I didn't ever have like a very violent streak growing up, so that's not something I was exposed to. But for me, like, it sounds ridiculous to say this, but like for me, there have been a few points where I've gotten somewhat violent, but most of it is like I'll like just kind of jump up and down and like go like this and just be totally uncontrollable. And it feels like the earth is cracking open and like hell is like breaking loose across the entire planet. So I mean, it looks silly. It looks like not a big deal, but like it feels horrific. And sometimes that does come across in violence, but not typically for me, and not very much anymore. But I know people, and I know a lot of other people with autism who do express violence in those situations. And I think it's pretty natural and normal if you're feeling that level of intensity to like need to have a release. Because if you like live in that state, it's kind of like living in the middle of a volcano. Like, you just gotta get the heck out immediately. It's like yeah, I don't know how else to describe it.
Fight or flight.
But you can't. You can't get out of it. Like,
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yes,
go
sir.
for
Yeah.
it, buddy.
So, Connor, you tell the story of when you were in school and, those misfits in there, did that in the gym locker. That had to be traumatizing to go through that. Who knows how long? For another 3 years, 2 years of high school, right? Just living in that.
Almost 5 years, because middle school and then all the high school, same people.
The rumor
Long
just kept circulating. It's, oh, that's Connor.
Yep.
The story.
Yeah.
When did you finally get to the point in your life today that you're moved beyond it, because it's scarring for so many years?
Have you moved beyond it?
Have you drawn the line in the sand?
That I think is a challenging question, because I think that moving beyond it is like always a process. I think there maybe been like 3 steps beyond it I've taken. The first one is before I left high school, finally making it to the point where with those folks in particular, I was able to build up enough confidence to make a few friends outside of like the total geeks, which were like friends by default, I'd say. So that's the first step. I think the second step was I took a pretty intentional like period of time, early college, to just go to another continent and just totally reinvent myself through rejection therapy, as I called it, meeting hundreds of people and introducing myself, and having very, very awkward, cringeworthy encounters More than love on the spectrum, and it always hurts more if it's yours.
Right.
I've been watching that show.
So good.
But I did that for months and months and months, to the point where after the end of it, like, I could talk to a stranger without coming across as a total creep, which I think was a big win for me. It's still weird and an oddball for sure, but not totally like it never talk to you again type of thing. And then that was step 2, and then I think step 3 I'm still working on, because I think actually now I've become the oppressor.
What do you mean by that?
And I've gotten to a point in my life where I have more of a position of authority in certain contexts. And now I'm realizing that, not by any intention, that I am causing more anxiety and stress onto the other people around me, that really in some ways look up to me for direction, that I think ultimately does come from that place of trauma, which ultimately is a big source of the anxiety I still harbor. So that third step is probably the most important step. You know, it's not the most obvious step.
I love it though. It's a beautiful breakdown, and it was a beautiful question, and and I want to offer you an idea about peopling. And I want you to understand
Peopling, I like it.
that it's like trying to fly a fucking airplane. It's like that many switches. And for most people, like, for whatever reasons they can't explain, they just understand where a whole bunch of the switches are. But a whole lot of us, it's not that fucking clear. And a whole lot of people get stuck feeling sad or bad or angry or hating others or hating themselves because they have to try harder to remember all these fucking switches. And I can feel your willingness to try harder and to keep learning, and it's impressive, and I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I think for folks who are maybe non-neurodivergent, you just imagine if, like, you went through a flight school in the past life, and so, like, it just comes naturally to you from that.
Right.
But some of us just didn't. So, like, we can learn, but every time we get in a plane, it's like, oh, like, what does that switch do? Like, let's find page 576 in the manual, like, oh, okay, like, well, in this particular situation, like, when this switch and this switch and this switch are on, like, what about that switch? And now it's like, oh, like, that's very stressful to me. But for anyone who's, like, done it before, it's like, okay, like, it's very intuitive.
So with that analogy, I will give you a similar one that I've seen a lot of spectrum people do. And it's like, you know, we love boundaries, we love clarity, right? We love structure. And so, like, I would watch kids, like, try to play a game, and I would watch how, like, some of them literally believe the purpose of the game is the rules, and the purpose of the game is to make sure no one breaks the rules, and the purpose of the game is to explain. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but you have to remember, nobody is playing for those rules. People are playing to have fun with each other. And if you can get that, you know what I'm saying? Then approaching the fun is way easier than trying to get to fun through rules. And, you know, and if it like that is something that is, it's one of those things that, and it's not just spectrum people. I see this at every level of reality, that certain people are missing the entire fucking point. Like, of whatever they're trying to do, like, you're missing the point. And when you can help someone see the point, their whole fucking life changes. And I had an experience like this with selling. Like, I was taking all these courses to learn how to sell, because I'd never learned how to sell, but I'd been running a business for years. And this one dude explained a sales call to me in a way that changed my life. And every way I'd ever heard of, like, sales is like, well, you're gonna do this and you gotta do that, and it's structure, and you need to lead this, and you need to, and this one dude said, sales is not about closing. It's not about selling someone something. It's about figuring out who they are and what their problem is,
and if you have any way of helping them. And it was this shift into like this heart-based thing where it's like, I understand that the reason I'm talking to you is to figure out what your problem is, because I can't help you if I don't know your problem. Whereas before I was focused on all of these ideas and these structures. And as soon as I made it about understanding who the person was, like everything happened way easier. Does that make sense?
That is like the most appropriate example, because I think that it's so easy to like want to help someone, but it's so unnatural for me to like actually understand their problems. Like I impose what I think would be helpful,
right,
but I don't do the like appropriate uncovering of what they're really struggling with. That's because partially the people stuff doesn't come as naturally to me, and also partially because I didn't understand the game, because someone gave me the rule book and like, this is how you play. And I'm like, okay. If they had a different rule book that says, before you even start this, just remember the number one rule is to have fun.
Right.
Like
they left that out.
Okay, like I'll okay, that makes sense.
I thought the purpose was to win, damn it. Oh my God. All right, thank you so much, brother. Like, thank you all. You want to hop up here? Let's wrap this up.
Thank you, everybody. All right. So that's what soul sauce is, and spiritual expansion. Let's just give a round of hippie snaps for everybody here for just coming today, because something in your heart and spirit told you to come here for whatever that reason is, and you were here and you contributed energy to this group. This group's intention is to help spread love and consciousness further than where we are. So you all are a part of that. Thank you all for doing that. Love you. Yeah. Thank you. Spiritual expansion this is kind of like a satellite group of Big Love Yoga Barn. So Big Love Yoga Barn is only like a few miles from here. It's a whole psychedelic spiritual love center. We've got events happening there all the time, from yoga, ecstatic dance, drum circles, sound healing. So come and get some of all that. Y'all can send a donation for this event tonight to any of these normal digital methods right here: PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. Cash is great too. And some of that donation goes to Big Love Yoga Barn, as well as your facilitators of the evening, to help Big Love Yoga Barn move to a completely new place. We're in the middle of a transition. We're going to be building a whole new building on a different property, a close distance from the original. And it's going to be a lot of work, and we're going to need a lot of people's time and energy and money to help that transition. So donate generously if you feel called to. If you need any help with that, let me know. Love y'all.
I've got an announcement also.